3DownNation's Justin Dunk joins us right now. Well, hey,
I don't want to
Justin.
throw the mic levels off, but you know what I usually do in these situations.
Do
Let's
it.
go.
Do
I'm not going to get
it.
too loud with it.
I think if there's any time to do it, now is the time, though, because you have a pretty substantial announcement to make. I'm not going to steal the thunder here. I want you to say it.
You're so kind, Tegan. I'm excited to share with your audience that 3DownNation has joined the Harvard Media family. Thank yous go to a lot of people from the top all the way on down the chain to be able to make this happen. And I'm lucky to have a great crew at 3DownNation to be able to continue to push the site forward. John Hodge and JC Abbott will officially be managing editors in this new era of 3DownNation, along with all our contributors. They're going to stay with us as well. And I really appreciate the trust from Harvard Media, especially the Hill family, John Jordan, the COO, and Tina Schwiedal, who have been immense in this process to bring this to fruition. So I'm forever grateful and excited about doing more of this with you, Tegan, with 3DownNation integrated, and just so jacked up for the future.
How do you think this partnership might influence the broader Canadian football media landscape? Because let's be honest, Justin, it's a time when traditional sports media companies aren't necessarily growing, but possibly shrinking. So what does this mean about, your journalistic integrity and the team that's behind you?
That's a great question, Tegan. And I think that there are two key points to hit on here. First, with 3Down, it's shown that we've been able to endure through this process of change in the sports media landscape in Canada and really around the world and continue to deliver high journalistic standards in what we do at 3downnation.com, staying independent, and that's going to happen going over to Harvard Media. And the other part of it is that I really feel like the best spot for 3DownNation in the long term is Harvard Media, with the business relationships that they have not only in Saskatchewan, but Alberta, even in Manitoba, and then also the expansion of that to help 3DownNation be around sustainable and successful for the long term.
So, of course, you talked a lot about, your editorial philosophy, your transparency, but 3DownNation managed to grow organically and to just not hundreds or thousands, but millions of readers without spending any money on advertising. What do you think resonates most with Canadian football fans?
I think it's the independent coverage. And, there were tough, trying times throughout 3Down's tenure, let's say, in the sports landscape in Canada, and especially, at the start. But we've grown into a publication that I think has earned our respect. And one of the key points, you sort of alluded to it there, is the fact that we've never paid for any marketing. So a lot of that has come from other people crediting us for our reporting, various outlets. I can remember big stories about, like, let's say, the Saskatchewan Roughriders when Chris Jones was there, illegally working out Johnny Manziel, and you had Pro Football Talk and ESPN and Washington Post linking to our reporting because they trusted it that much. So when you have that respect from your peers, even on the other side of the border in the United States, and I think it can really help websites grow. And specifically, that's been one of the real keys for 3DownNation and its independence. And I really want to drill down on that because there's already been some questions from fans on social media. How are you going to operate journalistically? We will remain independent. Yes, 620 CKRM and the Rider Broadcast Network is the voice of the Saskatchewan Roughriders. You're sitting right next to him and Dave Thomas. But the Hill family has assured us that they want us to continue doing what has made us great. It would be silly for anybody to kind of come in and change that editorial pinpoint that we have, because that's one of the main reasons we've been so successful. We call it as we see it. We try to be as fair as we can. And then we also say to our sources and people around the league that we have quality relationships with, if you feel like we're off base or that we were unfair, we want to hear from you. That includes the fans, Tegan. So I think that's a key part of all of this. We're so appreciative of our loyal followers on the website. And the last thing I'll say to wrap up the point is, you mentioned the amount of people that come to 3DownNation on a yearly basis. It's around 3 million unique users. Some people would look at our social media and be like, that seems preposterous. But we really focused on growing the website. And I think that has been our key with a business, is that we had a sole focus with it, and that has led us to great success and ultimately the partnership with Harvard Media.
Well, it's obviously a fun day, an exciting day for all that's involved. What did JC Abbott, John Hodge, what is the entire crew? How do they fall in, and what is their reaction?
Those guys are pretty jacked up, and the crew behind the scenes as well. I should say the contributors are pretty excited too. I've let them know that something could be coming, so now it's official for everybody. But specifically to drill down on John Hodge and JC Abbott. John Hodge has been with the site, since its inception in 2015. Yes, he's based in Winnipeg. A lot of people want to paint him as a Blue Bombers backer, but he is not that. He has turned himself into a respected journalist in the CFL space, developing his own sources along the way. And JC Abbott, he was actually discovered by us under an alternate alias. He used to have a Twitter handle called The Ratio Breaker, and he was breaking these little known draft stories, let's say at the time, players who were being added to the Canadian Football League draft list. John Hodge and myself are like, who's this Ratio Breaker guy? So we start DMing him, find out that he's an actual real person. He's not just, one of the people out there that doesn't like to put their name to anything. And then JC Abbott became a huge part of what we do at 3DownNation.com. So we have round the clock coverage on what we call our news desk, as well as working on, features and what's topical in the Canadian Football League space. And those two have been absolutely instrumental in growing 3DownNation to where it is today.
So can you give us a scoop? What's going to be the biggest offseason story? Is it the Toronto Argonauts head coach? Is that where we're looking at?
It is, maybe not for the best reasons, but the Argos are interviewing a lot of people. I'll give you my most recent scoop. It's up on Twitter just moments ago. But Jason Shivers, who used to be the Saskatchewan Roughriders defensive coordinator for a number of seasons, interviewed for the Toronto Argonauts head coach job. But, I get the sense that there are a couple bigger names that could be the front runners at this point. Rick Campbell, as we exclusively reported at 3DownNation, interviewed for this job over the weekend. And I think he could be one of the front runners. Key there is plural, front runners for the job. And I think somebody else who's going to draw some attention is Jarius Jackson. He had a great interim head coach stint with Edmonton at the end of 2024, was guiding the number one ranked rush offense and number one ranked offense overall, actually, during that stretch in the Canadian Football League. So, I'll leave you with that in terms of scoops and what's going on with the Toronto Argonauts, because I think Jarius Jackson could be pretty good if given a shot. But, it sounds like Rick Campbell is one of the front runners, but there's other people involved in the process.
So there were the social media photos of Mike O'Shea, right? That he had flown to Toronto to discuss it, then flew back to Winnipeg. Is that where the process is at? Like one-on-one, face-to-face interviews right now?
Yes, that's exactly what has been happening. Essentially, last week, the Argos interviewed all of the candidates in-house on their coaching staff that are still there for the 2025 season. So Jason Shivers was a part of that. Pete Costanza, Mickey Donovan, Mike Miller. I hope I don't forget anybody. Kevin Iben was another one, and I think Jason Shivers closes that loop of the in-house candidates. And then Rick Campbell was supposedly the start of the external candidates, after that internal process. That said, as you allude to, Mike O'Shea was part of that initial push, and that's somebody who Toronto really wanted and quite honestly thought that they had until O'Shea decided to go back to Winnipeg.
And of course, over the weekend, Justin, I know you were watching. U Sports, come on, Vanier Cup. U of S Huskies taking on the Montreal Carabins. So what stuck out to you in that 30-16 win for Montreal?
I was definitely watching in great detail as part of the CBC panel, and shout out to CBC for doing the job that they do with our Canadian University Football Championship game. Andy Petrillo is unbelievable, the way that she moves from sport to sport. And I think she was going from beach volleyball to Canadian University football to cycling, all on that Saturday, and she does it flawlessly. And Donovan Bennett was on the desk with me as well. And, my takeaways from that game, guys, and I'm curious to hear yours as well, would be that I thought the Saskatchewan Huskies really had a chance to win that football game. I like Jake Farrell coming out right away. Dave, I know you were there, and being aggressive, taking a shot down the field. Yes, it got intercepted, but I liked the Huskies mindset there overall. I think if they could have got Riker Frank going a little bit more throughout the football game, that could have helped. But that said, that Montreal Carabin front seven has some future CFLers on it. And I think that's what made it difficult on the Huskies to sustain that ground game. But I think there's a great foundation there. And obviously the program is headed in an impeccable direction with Scott Flory leading it and Mason Nice in there as the assistant head coach and offensive coordinator. I think that was a storyline that went under the radar. After Anton Amundrud was out of the lineup, he gets Jake Farrell up to speed to the point where he didn't lose a game all the way up until the national championship.
Okay, I got to ask, what was your view on the controversial no call on the forward pass past the line of scrimmage in that play with Pepe?
I don't understand how the flag was picked up. Like, this was pretty clear that Pepe Gonzalez was a pep or step two over the line of scrimmage, and they somehow talked about it and then picked the flag up. And it seemed like Scott Flory was pretty upset. And I know after the game he said he didn't want to make any excuses, but you're talking about a 1-point game at this point when this call happens, and the fact that led to a Carabin field goal to put them up 4 at halftime was absolutely crucial. So I think there's got to be a way. I'm not saying that U Sports should get a command center because I'm not necessarily sure that's even the greatest thing either. But to me, that call was obvious that he was over the line.
I'm laughing at Dave right now because we've been talking about that this afternoon. Should there be instant replay in the Vanier Cup?
Dave is a hard no for the record, just saying. But was that the turning point in the football game? I don't think so. What do you think it was?
No, I don't think it was. I think it was later on when Jake Farrell got intercepted for the second time. That was one of the key turning points for me. And it just really seemed like for Montreal and Pepe Gonzalez that the offense came fluidly. I don't want to say easily, but it was pretty fluid. And they were able to take some deep shots, whereas Saskatchewan had to earn those hard yards when they did get them. So I thought that Montreal was largely the better team on the day. And, I know most of your listeners might not want to hear it, but Pepe Gonzalez had an absolutely unbelievable season, arguably the best season ever by a first-year quarterback in the Quebec Conference, and potentially even the best rookie season ever by a kid straight out of high school or CJEP football in U Sports history. There was a graphic that we had on CBC that showed Pepe Gonzalez as being just the 4th quarterback in his first year to win a Vanier Cup. But Michael O'Connor was on that board. He came from Penn State University. Okay, that's a different level. And he had been there for at least one season before he got to UBC. So what Pepe Gonzalez did, essentially coming straight out of high school, or CJEP as it is in Quebec, was simply sensational and I would say historic.
I know you can't go back in a time machine, but do you think that U Sports got it right with the Heck Crichton Award being handed out to someone other than Daniel Wiebe? My argument is that the Saskatchewan Huskies offense just wasn't the same, and he'd been right in that air cast for essentially 4 different weeks, right? And the numbers that he was still able to put up, the impact that he would have in a game, and the value to his team, I don't know if they were handled appropriately when it came down to the voting. Your thoughts on that? Maybe I'm too much of a homer.
No, I don't think so, Dave. And it actually opens up a discussion around the Heck Crichton Trophy with respect to, does it actually go to the best player every year? If you go back and look at the year that Trey Ford won it, that wasn't even his best season in U Sports. He probably should have won it after his second season. So it's become sort of a career award. And I get that Ethan Jordan was great for the Wilfrid Laurier Golden Hawks, back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. So I think he actually was, in this case, full value to win the Heck Crichton Trophy. But is it a career award or is it an individual year award? Because then I think, to your point, Daniel Wiebe would have more of an argument. It would be hard to argue him over Ethan Jordan because I think they had similar levels of impact on their team. It's worth noting that Ethan Jordan didn't play in the Yates Cup game when the Laurier Golden Hawks were upset. I think he means that much to that offense. Very similar to Daniel Wiebe, though, but it does open up that discussion. Are we going to look at the best player from a stats perspective, from what they mean to their team perspective, a pseudo MVP, or a career perspective?
And Seth Hundeby, although he did win the President's Trophy as the top defender in the league, and I think he showed off why in that Vanier Cup all over the field. How do you think that he fared? And again, he wanted to go back to school to finish his engineering degree. He's putting the wraps on that now and then turning his attention to Saskatchewan Roughrider training camp. Can he step into the Roughriders Grey Cup champion locker room and not miss a beat?
I think he's got all the tools to do it. And I heard that somebody in Saskatchewan witnessed Seth Hundeby getting some love from Trevor Harris. Now, that doesn't just happen, as you know, Dave Thomas, if you don't earn it in training camp. So that speaks volumes to me when they ran into each other at Mosaic Stadium. And some people might look at Seth Hundeby and say, okay, well, he was selected in the 4th round. That's like the mid-round in the CFL draft. Was probably not that good. If he wasn't going back to school, as you mentioned, to finish his engineering degree, that guy would have been a bona fide first-round pick. You look at his measurables. He's over 6 feet. He weighed in at the combine at least around 250 pounds, and he's running a hand-timed 4.6 range kind of 40. Like, this guy has elite athleticism for his size, and he truly, I think, based on talking to some CFL scouts, has the ability to play middle linebacker in the Canadian Football League, which is not seen too often. So I absolutely think he can step in with the Riders and make an impact. He's going to have to earn it, as we know, under Corey Mace. That's what you got to do, but he has all the talent to do so.
If A.J. Allen could play rush end, could Seth Hundeby?
Oh, that's probably a better question for Corey Mace, but it's a possibility. He had 2 sacks in the Vanier Cup. Pepe Gonzalez didn't get touched until the 4th quarter, and both times it was Seth Hundeby.
And looking ahead to next season here, I know that this might be the earliest we're ever getting a schedule released here, just in December 9th, but the BC Lions kind of jumped out in front here, didn't they?
Definitely, and I kind of like this because we see it happen with the NFL schedule where some of the games, get leaked or get announced. So we know that the Calgary Stampeders are going to play against the BC Lions in the one of the touchdown Kelowna games because they will not be at BC Place because that big event known as the FIFA World Cup is going to be happening this summer. So, I do like it, and I think this is smart by the CFL to sort of, drip it out until the big reveal in December.
I mean, you got to build up the hype, right?
True. Mm-hmm. Living in this province, we kind of get ourselves into a bit of a silo sometimes, and we look at, oh my gosh, we've got 40-plus potential free agents for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, which you have highlighted at 3DownNation. Who is the most... So let's go ahead and take those blinders off, remove the barriers. If you were to say the most coveted potential free agent in the CFL is, who would the answer be?
Ooh, buddy, my guy's coming with the straight fire today, and I'm here for it. So it's funny you asked this because John Hodge, JC Abbott, and I were having this discussion because we're creating our top pending free agents that, in La La Land teams could potentially go and sign. And I say La La Land because I think, Trevor Harris is probably going to be playing for the Saskatchewan Roughriders again. I don't think he's going anywhere else if he's playing football. You would imagine Bo Levi Mitchell is going to be playing for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. So my argument, if we're going to talk about the pending free agents, would be that quarterbacks can change your team the most out of any other position. Like John Hodge, and I'm sort of outing him here, did his preliminary rankings and had Jalen Hutchings as the number 1 pending free agent. I was like, that's great, and I can understand it. He was dominant for the majority of the season. But you can go out and find defensive tackles, even rookies, to play at a pretty high level, just as Jalen Hutchings did in his second year in the Canadian Football League. But what you can't find usually on the open market if they actually get there is the quarterback. So I think that that's where you have to look at first and foremost. But if we're assuming that Bo Levi Mitchell goes back to Hamilton and Trevor Harris stays in Saskatchewan, which I think is very likely in both cases, then I look at it and say, it's got to be Brady Oliveira, especially because he's Canadian. That's so key to me. You look at his resume, he's an MOP, MOC, has multiple 1,000-yard seasons to his name, and is in his prime as a running back. And the last time he went through this CFL free agent process, he had massive offers on the table from the Hamilton Tiger Cats and the BC Lions for well more than what he signed with in Winnipeg, which, if I remember right, I think it was around the $230,000, $240,000 range. But he had $275,000 on the table from one of those other teams that I mentioned. So I think the dollars and cents usually tell you who's the most valuable. and trying to speculate here before we've gotten too far into it, I would put Brady Oliveira as my number one legitimate pending free agent, because I think there's actually a chance that he gets there unless the Bombers pay up with that kind of money.
Interesting. I'm curious, does offensive coordinator play into that, though, as well? Not just dollars and cents?
Yeah, it will in Winnipeg, I can tell you that.
There will be plenty to discuss in the offseason. And, of course, in case you missed it, Harvard Media has acquired 3DownNation. Justin Duncan, of course, his counterparts JC Abbott and John Hodge, now a part of the Harvard family, and of course SportsCage.com. We even got a comment here, Justin. Marcel Tanner Gaming, 3DownNation and SportsCage, perfect relationship. So we'll definitely be keeping an eye on 3downnation.com this offseason to see exactly how not only the Rider roster shapes up, but for all the other teams in the league, of course. Congratulations. You are stuck with Dave and I for that much longer. Thank you for coming on to chat, Justin.
Hey, I'm happy to be stuck with you two. You guys are the ultimate pros, and especially Dave has taught me a lot about Saskatchewan and the whole vibe and everything out there. He's taught me how to say names properly of some of the cities and small towns out there. And Tegan, honestly, you're a rock star with so much potential. So I'm so excited for those reasons and many more about this partnership with Harvard Media, and just can't say enough. The trust that's been bestowed upon us, especially what we do with the Rough Riders broadcast, but also now with 3DownNation, from the Hill family, on down to everybody in the organization, is not lost on me. And I'm very appreciative of it. So we're going to continue to bring the best, all the goods that we got at 3downnation.com. Thank you so much, guys, for giving me the time to share a little bit about it.
That sounds like a shout out to Langenberg. Just saying.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Justin, let's go.